Welcome. This is Talking Europe on France 24. I'm Catherine Nicholson. Thanks for being with us. Now, today, as France prepares to take over the presidency of the European Union in just a couple of months' time, I'm very pleased to welcome to our programme France's Secretary of State for European Affairs, Clément Beaune. Thank you very much for coming in to see us.
Hello, thank you very much.
I'd like to start off with some news that's dominated the headlines over the last couple of days. It's quite an international story. On Thursday, we learned Australia was pulling out of this $50 billion deal to buy French-made submarines. And it's all part of a new defence pact that they're entering with the US and the UK. Now, I know your colleague, the French Foreign Minister, called this a stab in the back to France. The British Prime Minister has spoken out. He said he doesn't think it's damaged relations between the UK and France. I'm just interested to see if France sees it the same way, or has it in fact damaged relations between London and Paris?
Well, this is a very important issue, very serious issue, I think, with Australia, of course, because here is a breach of trusts, very seriously. And then there are broader questions about probably the position of the UK in this global world. What is global Britain about? Mm-hmm. I think we see through this partnership, this strategic alliance, and after the Kabul crisis, that global Britain seems to be more about being a US junior partner than working with different allies. We do hope that there will be a room for a strong bilateral relation between France and the UK in the matters of security and defense, some place also for cooperation between the EU and the UK. What we see now is that the UK has refused to enter a discussion during the Brexit negotiations on the aspect of security and defense with the EU. I think that's a pity. Maybe it will change in the near future. We hope so. We still hope so. And between France and the UK, of course, the security, the defense relation is extremely strong. We don't forget the past. We don't forget our common values. We don't forget our common work, which is actually very strong still now. This will not disappear, for sure. But to be a good partner, to move forward, to deepen this relation, we need trust, we need visibility, we need clarity about what the strategic position of the UK is.
Well, Ursula von der Leyen announced in her State of the Union address on Wednesday, just gone, that there's going to be a summit hosted jointly by France and the European Union as part of the French presidency of the EU on European defence cooperation, and this will happen in early 2022. Just interested in what the aim of this summit is and whether it's France saying to the rest of Europe, you know, we can't rely on the US anymore, especially in light of what's happened in Afghanistan.
We don't teach any lesson, and I think we should escape the kind of religious discussions on the right concept, whether it's strategic autonomy, European sovereignty, and so on. I do believe in these ideas, but we have spent too much time in the EU, in European councils, in diplomatic meetings, discussing the right word or the right wording. Let's move forward on concrete items. Do we think that Europe, EU, should do more regarding cybersecurity? I think yes. Do we rely only on external players, on NATO and the US on this? I think no. And what we are doing, for instance, facing hybrid threats from Belarus, for instance, supporting Lithuania, supporting Poland, is EU security policy in concrete terms. What we do in Sahel, to take another place, another issue, is de facto a European defense operation. It's an ad hoc format, but this is European defense. So let's spend less time about the right definition, more time on the concrete move forward.
And just wondering about how you avoid a clash with NATO, which many European Union members are already members of. The Baltic states are particularly reticent to take part in something beside NATO. They believe greatly in NATO. How do you avoid that clash?
But we are a member of NATO, a strong member of NATO. We are a European security provider, including via NATO in many cases. I just take the example of the relation between France in particular and the Baltic states. Very interesting. We are a strong security provider, air policing, for instance. We have 300 soldiers in Estonia at the moment, along with the UK actually, in the framework of NATO, Enhanced Forward Presence, it's called. And the other way around, Estonia, to take this example, is providing 100 staff, soldiers in Sahel along with us. So NATO is part of the game, is part of the map. It will remain so. We don't have to invent something which is European pillar in NATO, besides NATO, against NATO. I mean, This is complementary.
Okay.
And we have to be more concrete. I think we have looked so many times for so long for the right definition and the right concept that we have lost a lot of time in concrete move forward.
All right, I want to look at a specifically UK-France issue now, migration in the English Channel, or La Manche as it's known here in France. The British Interior Minister, Priti Patel, recently announced the UK border force will be given orders to turn back boats, small boats sent by people traffickers sent from France. To your knowledge, is this already happening in the English Channel?
I don't think so, and I don't think it should happen. I mean, this again is a very, very serious matter that we take seriously in our cooperation with the UK. It deserves, I think, better than punchlines for domestic reasons. What happens here is an increasing migratory pressure. We are dealing with it. I must say that in France, we are sometimes criticized because people say, you are managing the UK border. Why do you do that? You should let people go. We do that because we think it's our common interest to organize matters on our side with cooperation, financial support from the UK, a lot of engagement on our side. Our police force, our gendarmerie, our police nationale are working very, very seriously and strongly with the UK on this. What has been mentioned, that the UK border force could push back people in the channel, I think is extremely dangerous, probably contrary to international law, droit de la mer, maritime law. Because what happens then, it's very risky. We can have people dying there. So we should cooperate more. We are ready to engage. Minister Darmanin, our Home Secretary, has been discussing extensively with Priti Patel. We are increasing our work. We have financial support from the UK to do so. We are taking a very big part in this, with local pressure, which is very high on our shoulders. So let's, again, move forward, try to find concrete solutions, not, I think, excessive responses, and not controversies between us, because we need to deal with this jointly.
And just another UK-France issue this week, trade issues really brought to the fore, especially for Brits living in France, over the announced closure of several Marks and Spencer's food stores here. I know you tweeted about it as well. Now, on the UK side, the British government anticipating trade problems as well, and they've pushed back the implementation of their customs checks on imports from the EU. So I wanted to ask you, the Europe Director at the Confederation of British Industry said he wants to see a consideration of a bespoke agreement that could avoid the majority of these checks and make things better on both sides. Given the level of trade between France and the UK, could you support this?
But look, we have an agreement. Whether it's a bespoke agreement, not, I don't know. We have an agreement. It's been negotiated, agreed jointly. No one was forced to accept it by the UK and the EU, all EU players, ratified, voted in our parliaments on both sides. So let's be serious here again. We have negotiated, trade difficulties were anticipated, and let's be honest and blunt. There are some issues which we are not happy about, trade frictions, but they are inevitable, they are due to Brexit. It's not the same being outside the single market and within the single market. It's not a matter of blaming or punishing anyone. It's a inevitable consequence of being outside a common market. Okay, so we have been very pragmatic. We have been very flexible, including regarding Northern Ireland issues on this, because we are not crazy. We take this very seriously. We have no interest in creating additional frictions, but the frictions result from Brexit. And the people who said you can have Brexit, no trade friction, they did not say the truth. Now we have to face it as much as we can. But I said it not as a Schadenfreude, as our German friends would say, but because this is a serious matter, and because people in France should also realize that being within the single market is bringing concrete advantages that you lose with trade frictions in particular when you leave the club. Let's think about it.
Just a word about vaccinations. High level of vaccination now around the European Union, more than 70% of adults vaccinated by the end of the summer, as promised. France and some other countries now starting to give third doses, booster doses of COVID vaccines. However, around the world, there's a low level of vaccination. In Africa, it's just 8% on average. Is it really right for France to be giving out booster doses, considering this situation in Africa, which is such an important partner for France?
First, it's not a political decision, it's science-based. We ask our health authority, it's recommendation. It recommended in some cases for older people or for people with health difficulties to get this booster. And we are not the only country to do so. A lot of European and non-European countries are doing the same. Let's be here again very clear. EU, sometimes it was criticized, has been the player in the world exporting doses from day one. We never closed our market. We never had an export ban, contrary to the UK, contrary to the US, because we did both. Sometimes it brought us criticism because people said we were too slow, precisely for this reason. We were quick, but we also exported doses from day one. It's not enough. We're happy that now the UK, the US is joining us in its international solidarity policy and efforts. Fine,
But perhaps
we will accelerate.
Perhaps there's more France could do in terms of creating bespoke licensing agreements so that they could be produced in other parts of the world. This has been suggested by the head of the WTO, for example.
Yes, and this has been discussed. We are very open to that. But we said a few weeks ago already that the most urgent matter was to be able to export. We exported from the EU 700 million doses. Record in the world. So we did our part. We will accelerate. President of the Commission, von der Leyen, announced 200 million doses in addition in our policy of solidarity. And we are ready to discuss pragmatically within WTO any solution regarding intellectual property in particular, which would be appropriate. What we said a couple of weeks ago is that we have to start with no export ban before we discuss the patent issue, which was not the concrete pragmatic response to the problem we were facing a couple of weeks ago. Now it's a debate which can go on in WTO, and we want to support local production, and we are financially supporting from the EU 1 billion local production in Africa.
All right, Clément Beaune, that's all we've got time for. Thank you very much for coming to see us on Talking Europe.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to you as well. Hope you'll stay with us for part 2 of the programme in a few minutes' time.